Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Bless the saints, God. You that do good into the household of faith. That devil come for their trouble. Bless them indeed, oh God. Enlarge their territory. Order their footsteps in the word. Because we were redeemed by the blood to walk in truth. We were redeemed by the blood to lay hands on the sick. We thank you, Lord. The healing of our minds. We declare that right now. The blood was shed for the crown of thorns for our mind, God. Heal us, heal the mind, oh God. We bind up those kabayoshata. You call mental illnesses in Jesus' name and loose the healing power of Jesus. He restores our soul. We believe that you're able to do it, God. Yes. That you're able to do it right now. Restore the joy of their salvation. Restore the joy of their salvation. Bring forth stability. Order their footsteps. Don't let any of them slide, oh God. Sheka.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Praise the Lord. Praise Jesus. Our vision, center of attraction, will be the best training and evangelistic ministry in the world. Our mission, center of attraction, exists for the purpose of glorifying the name of Jesus through worship, Christian discipline, and the proclaiming of the gospel. Our mission. What kind of church is this? A progressive and prosperous place. A place of worship to our God. An apostolic and prophetic place. A place of community and international outreach. A place exploding in growth. And what did Jesus say in St. John 12:32? And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. So what we're going to do today, we're going to lift him up, lift him up, lift Jesus up. Our scripture today is going to be found in Psalm 67. And it reads, God be merciful unto us, and bless us, and cause his face to shine upon us, Selah. That thy way may be known upon the earth, thy saving health among all nations. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee. O let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon earth. Yes. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee. Hallelujah! We praise you this morning. Yes, Lord. As our song praises come, we're going to praise the Lord. Hallelujah! Yes.
Praise the Lord, somebody. You know, I have to say, for some strange reason, these past few services, we've been starting with a little bit of old school music. And Friday, we were speaking about so many things, and the Holy Spirit already spoke to my spirit, the blood. And my uncle, James, confirmed when we talked about the blood. He kept hearing the blood, so, oh, the blood. Oh, Jesus, oh, the blood of Jesus, oh, the blood of Jesus, it washed me white as snow. Come on, church, let's sing that. Oh,
up our heart right now. Give us the capacity to love you more, to want more of you. God, some of our hearts haven't grown, and we still don't love everybody, we still can't forgive everybody, and there's some things that shouldn't be there. But we want to enlarge our heart today, and we want to say, Lord, we want more of you. We open up our heart to you, Lord. We soften our heart to you, Lord. And we're saying, come on in, Jesus. I know you're standing at the door knocking right now. Come on in, Jesus. Come on in, Jesus. Hallelujah, Lord. I give you myself, God. Hallelujah, Jesus. Yellow shaker. La 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 bo shaker. La 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 bo shaker. La 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 bo shaker. Bomani otosa. I said I would do it, the Lord said. I said I would do it. As you lay down your life, I'll give it back to you, Lord said. If you lose your life, you'll get it back. Come on, outside. Why don't you come to me now? Come to me, my children. Come to me, my child. Stop running from me. Stop playing these games because you're wasting time. Time is getting away from you. You got to give yourself to me now. All the way. Come on. Go all the way. I'm going all the way. Give myself to you, Lord. Say it again, Sherelle. I give myself to you.
Yes, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Bless his name. Yes, pastor's history now. As I read this, there will be 2 videos following the pastor's history. Our church vision, center of attraction, is to be the best training and evangelistic center in the world. Our church mission, center of attraction, exists for the purpose of glorifying the name of Jesus, the worship, Christian discipline, and the proclaiming of the gospel. Our church history, in 1976, Apostle James had a vision of preaching to the people and heard center of attraction. 1982, Apostle and Prophetess were released from Christ Community Church to start ministry. They conducted house meetings, 3 in Saginaw, 1 in St. Charles, Michigan. 1983, incorporated October 25th as James and Leona Glenn Ministries. The word broadcast aired on WSAM 1400 AM and Power 107 FM. In 1984, federal ID number and 501c3 under the name Center of Attraction Fellowship. Public church meetings start at Saginaw's YMCA. 1988, Center of Attraction Fellowship moved to 719 Emerson Street, Saginaw, Michigan. 1997, Center of Attraction Fellowship moves to 4375 South Washington Road in Saginaw, Michigan, and is renamed as Center of Attraction Outreach. 1999, Center of Attraction starts building the 3,000 square foot church and fellowship facility. In the year 2000, new building construction is finished and ready for worship. 2003, teacher Evelyn Allen released to pastor Redeemed Ministries. 2006, launching of Center of Attraction West. In 2014, burning of church mortgage and preparation for phase 2 building projects. Amen. Amen. Church accomplishments: 310 baptized, countless saved, healed and filled with the Holy Spirit. 32 ministers acknowledged and or licensed. 2,423 worship services. 1,735 Bible studies. Amen. Amen. The church activities, the Solid Rock television broadcast, the Solid Rock Bible Institute, Word Explosion classes, Mayor Crime Task Force, Ezekiel Project, Northeast Ministerial Alliance, Eastside Ministers Initiative, City Rescue Mission, Eastside Soup Kitchen, Good Neighbors Mission, TCT Prayer Partners, Saginaw Teen Challenge, Saginaw County Prison, Summer Youth Program, Bancroft Eddy Church Services, citywide tent festivals, many outreaches and evangelistic projects, the Church of Saginaw, Michigan Council of Community Churches, Health Source Church Services, Azusa Fellowship, and Network of Christian Services. Amen. 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 Now we're going to have, at this time, our ministry of giving to pastors. Well, the members, we already know what we're supposed to do. The announcements. Yeah, the 2 videos. Yeah, I had mentioned that there's 2 videos to see, to be shown.
Introducing Apostle James Blair. Prolific teacher.
The true sense of prophecy, I believe, where God begins to infuse himself in man
and begins to deliver a timely word for the people, for the issue, for the sin condition, whatever the situation is. Prophetical gift. Certainly. Introducing Apostle James Leonard.
Mother in Zion.
The veil was ripped from the top to the bottom, signifying the way was open into the Holy of Holies. So we don't have to wait on no man. We can go to the blood of Jesus and come to the mercy and get help in our time of trouble.
Worshiping warrior. Intercessor. Deed of wisdom. Kingdom connector.
Do you understand that everything we're doing in the new covenant right now is under the tabernacle of David?
Prophetess Leona Miller.
Lights, action.
Praise the Lord. This is what I have a prophet and apostle in the house. Now it's time to receive blessings from on high. We have a ministry of giving. Now we know as members here what we pledge and what we're gonna do as far as meeting our pledge. Amen? Now, I'm going to challenge everybody here. My wife's not here, but we give it $50. You know, that's what we're doing. Now, anybody want to meet that challenge, just bring it up. Because we know where our blessings flow from. $50. Anybody who want to challenge that? But if you don't want to give $50, just give from your heart and give what you can to support the ministry. Amen? So let's read our declaration. Let's read our declaration as we give it. Right. If there is a check, make this out to Pastor James or Leona Glenn. And we got Giveify. Yeah, you can also have Giveify available for, you know, this is our ministry of giving the pastors. We'll do our offering affirmation when we give our regular tithe and offering. Okay? So right now we're just giving to the pastors. So if you remember our pledges and just give the best you can give. come and give. This is to our leaders. You know, we have pledged, so now it's time to do what we have pledged. Amen. 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 All right. All right. Give your best. God gives us His best. Give your best.
Praise God. We are glad to have you all today. God bless you. We're back in the hands of, we have a special presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, Prophet's birthday was on the 8th of October along with Miss Bertha. And I heard Miss Bertha had a wonderful dinner last night and she got turned it up on food out there in Troy. And so I know that she had a very beautiful presentation. The girls set her up real nice. But we have something for our prophetess for her birthday. And some gave it early and some gave today, but we got cards and things for our prophetess because we love her. We celebrate her birthday because of who she is. She's our spiritual mother. She's our teacher. She's our prophetess. She corrects us when we're wrong, and she gives us praise when everything else is going good. So we just want to say happy birthday to you. We love you. We love you. Give her a hand because today's her birthday. Your 84th birthday. So hallelujah to her. On another note, we did our first fundraiser this year. We've never did one before, but we had our first fundraiser. And it was our first annual bazaar. And I was expecting more, but God said, enough is sufficient. And He gave us enough, which we was able to raise these funds for our pastors so that they know that they're appreciated. And everybody, we sold parking spots out there, out in the parking lot, and we sold, and whatever we sold, I didn't actually give them everything because I wanted to take it all. But no, I would take a little more. Just give me a portion of what the Lord touch your heart to give back, to make it more successful. And just to let you know, we did pretty good for our first time. So our next fundraiser, which we're planning, get your calendars ready, because I'm going to talk to Minister Gina, so we're going to try to plan a trip to either the history of the Bible Museum, Holy Land Experience, or the Creation Museum. So this is going to be scheduled for 2021. So as a fundraiser for our pastors. Because we love them so. And they do so much for us. They do a lot for us, more than anybody would ever know. So with that being said, so we raised pretty good. So give us a hand. Thank you. That's the end of the pulpit.
Praise the Lord. We love our pastors. Amen. Now it's time for our tithe and offering. Need an envelope? Just raise your hands and one of the ushers will be sure to get you an envelope. And if you write a check, make it out the center of attraction. And we do have Giveify available for those who want to use your credit card. Now, as you prepare your offering, let's read our offering affirmation. As we give, would y'all stand, please? As we give our tithe and offering, we are believing you, Lord, for jobs and better jobs, raises and bonuses, benefits, sales and commissions, estates and inheritance, interest and income, rebates and returns, checks in the mail, healing and divine health, gifts and surprises, finding money, bills paid off, settlements, debt demolished, royalties received, scholarships and grants, contracts, money management, 100-fold return, according to your word, in Jesus' name. Amen. Hallelujah. Let's follow the direction of the ushers and bring your tithing and offering.
unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer slave to fear, for I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name, and I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. Oh, I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, for I am a child of God. I am no longer a slave to fear. Oh, for I am a child of God. Yes, I am no longer a slave to fear. Oh, yeah, for I am a child. Oh, 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 stand. You are a child of Allah. You are a child of God.
Beautiful.
We're going to have at this time a couple testimonies. You know who you are, and you know
What you supposed to be speaking today?
what the testimony is. It's your time, okay? I'd just like to start out and say, I love my apostle and my prophets. You know, the kind of love that Jesus gave us. That unconditional love. Even when you're wrong. Now, Leon, I know I stick to the program. Well, see, that's what apostles do. Apostles lead. But they don't lead on their own. They lead by the Spirit of God that's in them. That's what makes this faith so special to me. And my wife, she feels the same thing. I mean, when you have people in your midst praying for you, when you don't know they're praying for you, when you have people in your midst that see the glory and what your potential can be and pulling on it until that arrives to have the glory of God shining. Those are the kind of people I'm talking about. Sherelle? Yes.
Right, amen. Praise the Lord. Okay, well, I'll say I've been here for a long time. Yeah, well, I was out of school, I was like 19, and now I'm 40. So during those years, I call them pops and mom. They're like my mother and father. Not just spiritually, but, you know, naturally. I've been taught so many things. One thing I was thinking about, if there was a time where, I don't know what I was going through, but I decided that I needed to move on. And I went to both of them and they released me. But it was, you know, hard for me because I had been here so long, the connection that I have with them. But things happened and I ended up coming back home. And I'm glad that I did come back home. This is where I needed to be all the time. I realized, you know, the growth that I have had throughout the years, and I still got time, some more growing to do, as Pops would say. But I'm grateful for you two in my life. You have helped me through horrible times in my life, and I'm grateful because if it wasn't for you guys, I don't know if I would have made it through those times. So I'm glad that God brought me back home and that I listened and that I'm here now, and thank God for my beautiful children. Those are two situations that God blessed me with. Two things, two miracles. Those are my miracle babies. These two labored with me through and through, you know, with miscarriages and everything that happened to me. But thank God for the promise. And if I was anywhere else, I just don't think that, you know, I don't think it would have ended up this way. So I thank God again for you two, and I love you, even if I don't say it often or maybe I don't show it. But I do love you a lot, more than you'll ever know. So that's it.
Praise the Lord. Now we're going to turn it over to Apostle.
So I think we have
Let's
a
read
couple others that we
One,
can
okay,
share.
one more.
I'd like to say to my pastors, I appreciate you guys. I love you so much. I thank you for being there for me. Y'all crying, y'all crying. I thank you guys. I thank you guys for being there for me through all the aspects of my life, even the times when I don't allow people into my life. I still felt their prayers. Still felt their love, and I just appreciate, even the sermons. I was thinking about Apostle James' sermon last week. It was hitting me all kind of ways about faith, and just, being able to hold on. And so throughout the week, I was going through and I was like, Lord, listening to Apostle James' sermon, those areas where I need help, Lord, those points where he was talking about different areas of faith, just listening to his voice, I can hear his voice, and it's like, oh Lord, yeah, this is what's been going on in my life. This is the answer to the things that's been going on in my life. And so I just want to say I appreciate both of you for just being there for me through the thick and the thin, and loving me, and just helping me to understand life, helping me to understand the things that I asked so many questions like, Lord, what's going on in my family? So I'm beginning to pray for my family because now I see what it is that's been, going down the line. And so I'm able to continue to pray, even though I don't see the results. I'm going to continue to press. I'm going to continue to push until I reach the promise. So I just appreciate it. I love you more than words I can say. I don't talk a lot, but I just appreciate and love both of you.
All right, anyone else before you? My sister wants to say something, my brother, maybe? Oh.
Amen. Thank God for being here again. I always enjoy coming to Saginaw. Such love and warmth shown to us. Amen. I thank God for Apostle James and Prophet Leon and Glenn. I remember one occasion they were down home visiting his sister, and we were talking about spiritual things. And I told him I felt like God wanted me, like some like kids go to colleges and they have people that they follow to show them around the campus, whatever. So I told both of them, I felt like God had placed them in my life so I could shadow them. Amen, to shadow them. Amen, because there's such an anointed and beautiful couple, well-versed in the Word of God. Amen. Great teachers, and I felt like I could glean something from them. Amen. We all want to grow. Amen. The Bible tells us to grow in the knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. I felt like I could get so much from them. When people have been tried and they come out shown to be true, amen, that's the people that you may want to follow. So I love them both. I don't talk a lot. I guess it's one of the things I don't say a lot. Love, because I feel like it's such a powerful word, and that we shouldn't use it haphazardly. Amen. And if you love, say you love. So, and it takes time to love some people. Amen. So I thank God for both of them. Amen. They have always been a blessing into my life. Amen. They always speak encouraging words. They're always the perfect example. Always a perfect example. Prophet Leon always got that beautiful smile on her face. Always an encouraging word. And she's a teacher too. Amen. I know you already know that, but I gleaned that from her talking. I know she's very versed in the Bible. Smart, very attuned in the Word of God. Amen. A powerful, anointed woman of God. in her own right. Amen. I know the two of them are stronger, but she's a powerful woman of God in her own right. Amen. She don't toot her own horn, so they gave me the space, so I guess I said. Amen. Thank God for Apostle James. An ideal father, I think, allow his kids to grow up and experience life. And yet he's still there for them, to both of them. I think, and praise God for that. Those are good examples to follow. In a world there's so much distortion, you don't know what to believe, who to believe. It's good to know that you got people in front of you that are living the godly life that can be an example that you can follow and that you can glean from. Amen. So I love them both, thank God for them. I'm going to still shadow you, whether you invite me to or not. Amen.
God bless you all. My name is Carol. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the youngest sister of the Glenn family. And so I just want to, as always, that's a commercial break. But I just want to let my sister and my brother know how much I love you. I have always been the one in the family that's the emotional one and the kind of the touchy-feely one. And I think that most of them didn't know what to do with me. But I thank you for your mentorship. I thank you as a brother and a sister for always being present. And even as family, sometimes sometimes we, when things may not go right, they may not want to tell you the truth. That's not the truth when it comes down to my big brother. James is going to tell you the truth in love.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that about him. Not only is he a good leader in ministry, he is a good leader in his family. And always has been. My sister as well. And so I appreciate that. I consider myself blessed to be able to have family such as this. And so I decree and declare over your life that this season will be your harvest season. I pray in the name of Jesus that the seeds that you have sown into not only ministry, but into the lives of your family, that seed will come forth in the name of Jesus. So that's my prayer over your lives on this season, that much fruit will come forth. Amen.
Celebrate an anniversary? What was that? 21 years. Oh, that. You can drink now. 21. That was just a grape juice. I would like to say that Alda James's little sister here, how old was she when she came to stay with us during the summer times when Mama let her come? About 8? She was very young. And so she kind of like grew up with us. And we love you. And Jim too.
Amen. All right, we have one more.
I'm Gabby, and I just wanted to share just how much I appreciate you all for taking me and my family under your wing. This is how I feel. You loved us, and I just appreciate and thankful that you guys have been a part of my journey thus far. When I first started coming to Center, I just found out I was pregnant with Noah, and I was going through a lot of emotions, and I really I feel like I was going through depression at that time. And because I kept coming, you guys encouraging me in the Lord and loving me, it has helped me, and I feel like it has helped shape me into the wife and the mother that I am. You guys married me to my husband. You guys have been a big part of my journey. So I appreciate you guys for being a part of it. I appreciate you guys being part of my village, for me and my children. And I just thank you, and we love you.
We love you.
Well, praise the Lord, saints. Praise Hallelujah. good God?
Yes, he is.
Let me just say this quickly. What I appreciate about our anniversary or our appreciation, well, first of all, I have my own thoughts about someone appreciating me, but that doesn't stop people from doing that. But this as last year, I'm trying to reflect last year, these are days of revival for us. Last night was exceptional. And then Thursday was wonderful. And then we're basking in the shadow of those days, the glory shadow of those days. And so we thank God that was already transpired, and we are just full of the Spirit. And for that we're glad. Amen. It's my honor. I met this young lady via my sister and brother, and that was when dear Apostle was still alive. And he's toting on his side this wonderful woman. And later I got to meet her. And I found out that she was the sister that we never met before. Because she is down to earth. She is real. That doesn't mean that she's not anointed. This woman of God is an entrepreneur. She's a mother in Zion and a mother, and on it goes. She has been laboring in ministry. Of course, when Apostle transitioned, she took the baton of that ministry and charged forward. And she has some of her army of the Lord here today in the form of Trinity Deliverance Vision Center. Come on, give it up. Give it up for them. So we are on Trinity. Would you stand? Trinity, stand. Stand, Trinity. Come on, give us some praise. All the way from the deep. So I just, on behalf of my wife and I do want to say publicly that we love you. We appreciate all that you have rendered and done, words of encouragement to us personally, and how you're still holding to that which God has assigned you to. You are multi-gifted, you are multiply mantled, and for that we are just so blessed and pleased that you're in our presence, and you have honored us by being with us again. And so, without any further ado, this mighty woman of God in the form of Apostle Diane Washington, would you stand and show her some kingdom love as you come? Trinity Deliverance Center.
Bless the Lord. Man, oh my soul.
Yes.
All that is doing, bless his holy name. I give honor to God today, thanking him for his mercy and for his grace. For thanking him for my brother and my sister. Amen. I like to say my brother and my sister from another mother. I fell in love with them, and and I thank God for them. They've been the same from day one. That you don't find. Amen. You may be seated. So I give God the praise and honor for them. Amen. So before I come to you, praise and worship is going to just do something to kind of help me get myself in place. Amen. So pray for this as we go. Thank you.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. God bless you all. Amen. Thank God for apostle and prophetess. Bless you. Just worship with us. Amen. Thank you, Jesus.
I've had some problems, some great and some small. But you being God, delivered me from them all. I still can't believe all the ways you made. An incredible God deserves incredible praise. Come on, somebody give him some incredible praise. Hallelujah. I've had some problems, some great, some small. You being God, delivered me
Hallelujah, hallelujah, let's keep worshiping. He's an incredible God.
Man can't set this office. Only God can set this office into place. Man has designed the office. And man have put themselves in office. But there's a difference when God set the office and called the office and affirmed the office. And I thank God with these two gifts that you have, God has continuously confirmed the office that He has set them in. Amen. The anointing follows the gift. If the anointing don't follow the gift, then you better search out and wonder where did that gift come from.
That's all right.
So many people desire to walk in. So I remember my first sermon in Michigan. A young lady came to me after service because the demonstration of the word went forth, and she said, "Pray that I have that same anointing that you have." I said, "Okay, lift your hands. I'm going to let her die in childbirth 2 times. Let her wake up blind. Let her wake up paralyzed." She said, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. I'm telling you that it's something to desire the gift, but there's a preparation for the gift. And you cannot say they sit up there and they look beautiful, don't they? But it's some stuff going on. Amen. 36 years did not come just come and happen. Amen. They had some toils, some trials, some situations that have come in their life. But God's grace on the gift have given them the strength to outlast the storm. That's why some of you can come up and give the accolades that you were there when I was going through. But God was there when they were going through. So they can be able to be here when you go through. There's a grace that comes with the gift and the calling on their life that you may not know what they've been through and what they have been through to be able to stand before you and give you what God says. Amen. There's a loneliness that comes with it. There's a separation that comes with it. We can't do everything that you guys do. Can't go every place that y'all go. Sometimes you want to invite us to go, but sometimes we just can't go every place that y'all desire to go. Amen. Because there got to be a separation. I found out a long time ago is that I can't do everything and expect God to keep me anointed. So there's a grace of sacrificing that you have to go through with the gift that God has given you. Most people want the gift, but they don't want that sacrifice that comes with the gift. They don't want that separation. They still want to do the same thing that they used to do. But I'm telling you, you can't do the same thing. Once you have received the gift, I was just dreaming the other night, and the Lord said, there's a call. And I called Jeremiah first, before I placed him in the office of a prophet. First, you got to be called. Who called you? You got to learn who's calling you and who's speaking into your life. Amen. And you got to learn to hear the voice of God. Amen. Yes, it comes to a prophet, but you got to know that that prophet is walking in alignment with the word of God. Because collard greens can get up and prophesy. Read.
1 Corinthians 12:27. Now ye are the body of Christ, and members in particular. And God hath set some in the church, first apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, governments, diversities of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Have all the gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way.
Father, I just thank you for your word today. Thank you, Father God, that give me the strength that I need to deliver your word. Bless the hearers of the word. Father, thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. 27, read it again for me.
Now ye are the body of Christ.
Now ye, look at somebody and say, you are the body of Christ. See, most of us think that somebody else is the body of Christ, but we are the body of Christ. We make up the body of Christ. Amen. All of us here in our own personal ways, we make up the body of Christ. You know, and we got to learn that we are the church of God in Christ. Amen. And when people see us, we come representing the church. The body comes representing the church. The body comes representing the kingdom of God. So when you walk into a room, kingdom have walked into the room. The atmosphere should shift when you walk into the room. I remember the first time that I really met Apostle. The atmosphere shifted in the room. And I knew somebody that was anointed had walked in the room. I only felt that a couple of times, and that was one time when my husband walked into the room. And I texted the lady, I said, my husband just arrived. And she said, huh? I said, my husband just walked in the room, because they had taken all the pastor's wife and put them up in the front. You know how they separate them. I was at this conference, and I said, my husband just arrived in the room. And she said, all the pastors and apostles are in the back of the room. My husband is back there. Look. She looked back there and she said, he's the first person that walked through the door. I said, I knew it. The anointing that's on their life will show up. If you just get in the spirit of the Lord, you'll recognize when Apostle walk in the house, you'll know. When he pull in the parking lot, you'll know. His spirit is going to set in the place. It sets the atmosphere. So we read where he set what? The apostles and prophet in the church to govern you guys. Most church members don't like to be governed.
That's true.
I don't like to be governed. I don't like to be told what to do. Nobody told me I'm wrong.
You're right.
That's the problem. Is that we don't want anybody to instruct us, but the apostles and the prophet will sit in the church to give government to the church. Amen. Each gift have its own place in the church. Amen. And we thank God for the gifts of the church. And I'm not saying that, oh, the prophet and the apostle is sit aside and they, you know, they this and they that, and you ought to bow and step fast and step back. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying watch the anointing of the gift that God is giving you. Respect the anointing that the gift that God has given you. You know, they ain't your girl. She's prophetess. Amen. She's not your homie. Amen. Because now you belittling the gift that God has given you. Amen. Respect her. Amen. No matter where she's at, no matter what she's doing, she's in the grocery store. She know, hey girl, no. Hi, prophetess. Amen. And you know, I'm saying that, but me personally, lady asked me, she last 2 Sundays ago I was in New York City, she said, what do you like to be called? I said, my mama named me Diane. She said, no. I mean, what did you like to be called? I said, no, my mother, for real, my mother did name me Diane. And she said, but how do they address you? I said, some address me as Diane. Some address me as pastor. Some address me as apostle. I said, what you feel like you should address me as? She said, ooh. I don't know. I said, well, who you feel like I am? You feel like I'm dying? You lead me to the pulpit and you feel like I'm dying? Hello? What are you, she said, well, I want to dress you the right way. I said, honey, if you dress me as pastor, you're dressing me the right way because I'm a pastor. If you dress me as an evangelist, you're dressing me the right way because I am an evangelist. If you dress me as a missionary, I am a missionary and I take the mission of the Lord Jesus Christ everywhere I go. I said, if you address me as a teacher, I can teach. I said, so whatever you want to call me, the fivefold ministry gift, I'm welcome it. I'm okay with it. I said, but if you just want to call me Diane, guess what? I'm okay with that too, because that's what my mama named me. But my father gave me a more excellent gift. Yes. Recognize that gift. Right. When you meet somebody, recognize the gift. Do you understand what I'm saying? Recognize the gift in people. Don't just use them or come. You know what? I heard a lady said that she would call somebody she would call them pastor, and they wasn't a pastor. And the pastor had said that they were walking in the office of pastor. But she said, well, the Lord told me he was a pastor. Well, did the Lord tell your pastor that he was a pastor? Well, no, the Lord told me that, but did you tell the pastor that that's what the Lord had told you? And then the pastor released you to call that person pastor. She said, no, I just started doing it. Well, you out of order. She said, no, you don't understand. The Lord told me that. I said, but the Lord usually are in order. Usually the Lord is in order. Okay, that sounds a little bit better. So we as believers, as the body of Christ, have to follow protocol, don't we? And we have to walk in the ordinance of God. Amen. So I know my brother and my sister have taught you guys how to walk in order. Amen. And thank God for the grace that's on the gift that stands in this pulpit to teach you the ordinance of God's word. Amen. So when you go any place, you can walk in the ordinance and the documents of the word of God. Amen. You don't have to fall out of order because you know how to be what? In order. Amen. So don't go getting a revelation when you're not under them. You know, don't go before and get a revelation knowledge. I was told don't take a prophecy in the parking lot, or the bathroom, or the garage. Hello? Don't take a prophecy over the phone unless there's somebody to judge that prophecy. Amen? Because sitting up under the gift of a prophet, they act like they may start prophesying because they was up under and around the gift of the prophet. Lady told me, I know that I'm a prophet. Okay. Good. And then she started prophesying to me. I said, whoa. None of that was true. She said, God told it to me. I said, well, he just lied. Because none of that is true. I haven't been through any of that. That's not true. She was telling me what I've been through. That's not true. I haven't been through that. She told me what kind of wedding dress I was going to wear. And that wasn't true either because I had bought my wedding dress and I wasn't about to go and buy another one. And she just went on with all this. I said, honey, that's not true. That's not of God. That's not true. Go back and pray again. And she said, well, I know God told me that. I said, okay. Good for you. Let's get in the Word of God. And let's start saying. The Word of God says that if you desire that gift, don't. Amen. And I was telling her, I said, let me explain something to you. You can desire the gift, but the gift don't call you. God don't call you to walk in the gift. Then that's not the gift of God. And sometimes we can hear a conversation and we thinking now we got a revelation. and then we go and prophesy to someone. And we're very off because the anointing of God did not call us to do that. And did not send us forth to do that. Amen? Go with me and read 31 for me. Same chapter, 31.
But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way.
Covet you the honest gift and the best gift, and yet he will show you a more excellent way. You know, when I started studying this and started reading this and started getting this in my spirit, I realized that most of us covered all these other gifts, all the action gifts, because the action gifts will motivate the church. The action gift bring the church into high elevation, and it motivates and it covers the current church, and it makes the church excited, and it gives you words and activation to go out and do something. Those are good gifts to cover, amen. The prophetic gift is the gift that really is the seeing gift. It sees your future. It can talk to you, amen. It can tell you where you at and where you need to go, amen. It can govern you and it can align you up and where you need to go. It can speak into your future. And that apostle, it's amazing how I saw a picture about the apostolic and about the calling of 5 grace gifts. And it says that the apostle can touch each and every one of them. Isn't it amazing? It's the shortest hand, but it can touch each and every one. I feel like that because the apostle can go and weave in every last one. Apostle can teach. Amen. Apostle can come and work miracles. Apostle can prophesy. Amen. And apostle can pastor. So he can touch all the grace gifts. Amen. Thank God that you got a man and woman of God can touch all the grace gifts. Yeah. Not lacking in anything. Amen. Can be able to impart to you, train you up, and send you out. Amen. So don't desire the gift. Wait till the gift, amen, is spoken into your life. That God speak that gift into your life. My husband was called to be an apostle for over 20-some years before he told anybody. He said he wouldn't tell anybody. Because he didn't want to be able to, well, he knew he wasn't able to walk in that calling and walk in that gift. And so Apostle Skinner, which was his apostle, called him in and said, what the Lord telling you? Nothing. He said, you are called to be an apostle of God. That was confirming what God had already told him, right? God will confirm what he done told you. Yes. If there's no affirmation and confirming what he done already told you, that's like when somebody prophesying to you, they're only confirming what God had already spoke to you. All right. Amen. Or confirming what another prophet, another apostle had already said to your life. Apostle Glenn came down to the church about 2-3 months ago. I don't know if it's been that long ago. But my sister Betty was sitting in the audience, and the week before that, God had spoke to me to tell her something. He came the next Sunday, said the exact same thing. And the church went up, because everybody knew that he hadn't heard what I had said to her, and if he had heard it, he didn't know which one it was. So the God will always send someone to confirm his word that he established in your life and said in your life. If that word is not confirmed, then you keep it and hold it. Amen? You keep it and hold it. So that's why he raised up the grace gifts in this church, amen, to be able to activate you, to be able to send you forth. And I want to say this before I get to, because I'm getting a little short breath, but I want to say this to you guys is that I know that you're getting ready to go on a roller coaster ride. But it's not a scary roller coaster ride. It's a roller coaster ride that God is going to take you from places to places, and he's about to do things in your life and bring people into your life, and he's about to set this ministry. Every time I'm coming down here, I'm seeing a lighthouse. I see it as a lighthouse. It's a beacon. It's a place for the community. It's a place for everyone around to be able to hear and come and be able to guide them in the Word of God. to show them the word of God, to be that lighthouse, to be those strong towers, those beacons to draw people, to set them forth. This is a training, activating center. You know? So you may not never get to thousands because you're a training center, you're sending people out and people are going, they get encouraged, they're going and they're being trained and being activated into the prophetic. And books need to come. Someone told me, he said, both of you guys got so many books laying inside of you, dumbing inside of you, and you need to write those books.
Amen.
You need to write those books. And yes, the teaching that you do on Facebook Live, you need to do an iPod or whatever they call it or something, but it's a different thing. It's a podcast, I don't want to be in this scene stuff like that. But you need to do that. And prophetess, you need to start too. Because it's so many people have the gift of prophecy, but there's no one there to cultivate it and help them to be accurate in it. There's so many people need to be launched out, but they need to be launched out the right way. They're being launched out up under people. Let me tell you what I saw the other day, and then I'm going to go back into the word. I saw the other day, somebody invited me to come to a program. And a pastor was elevating an apostle. I said, that's kind of like out of order, isn't it? And so she sent me back. She said, no. I said, well, how can a pastor elevate somebody who he's under? And she said, I said, so how that's happening? She said, well, because it's happening. I said, well, the whole thing is set up out of order then. Amen? You can't elevate me over you. There's something wrong with that. Amen? That's like the teacher going up there acting like she's the principal. Amen? It can't happen, can it? And I said, something wrong with that program that y'all doing. And she said, ain't nothing wrong with our program. I said, okay. I said, that's the first thing wrong right there. You can't nobody be instructed. Come on now, when you get so big that you cannot be instructed and called in and say, okay, honey, y'all doing it, but you're doing it wrong. Find somebody who can elevate him as an apostle, not a pastor. Amen? So come in order. The body of Christ got to learn how to come in what? Order. Amen? So God says the gifts in the church to come what? In order to govern the church. Amen? So come you the most honest and the best gift of all. The Lord told me, he said, the gift that you should be covering is the gift of love. Amen. The gift of love is what you should be covering, the gift of love, instead of trying to prophesy, trying to do this, trying to interpret tongues, trying to work miracles and everything. The gift that we all should be covering is the gift of love. If we learn how to walk in love, amen, and we learn how to walk in the grace of the Word of God, and let the Word of God teach us, lead us, guide us, anoint us, that we are available, amen, to edify the church. The gift is there to edify the church. Amen. The gift was not given to any of us to edify ourselves. It bothers me when somebody calls himself the chief apostle. Amen. It scares me. You know, Apostle told me, he said, okay, you're going to get up the announcement. Call me, and I need you to call me chief apostle. I said, well, I think you need to get somebody else to introduce you. And he said, no, Lord told me to introduce you. I said, he probably didn't tell you that one. Because the Lord knew I wasn't going to say chief apostle. So he didn't call me to be on the program. No, he did not call me to be on the program. And he said, I put you on the program. The Lord told me to tell you to introduce me. I said, Apostle, he couldn't have told you that one. Because he knew I wasn't going to call you no chief apostle. I'll introduce you, but it won't be chief apostle. Yeah. So he said, so you undermining what I just told you to do? I said, I got a greater apostle than you that I got to come up under. So yes, if that's what you call it, undermining, not being respectful, not being honorable, then yes, sir, I'm doing all that. Amen. I've been taught better. Amen. I read my word. The word tells us that the chief apostle, that the chief, that the cornerstone is only one. It's only one, and that's Jesus. Don't set yourself in place of what you're supposed to be. Learn how to read the Word of God, understand the Word of God. That's why He called teachers in the church to teach us the written Word of God. Amen. So we can come up under those grace gifts. Amen. And be lifted up. Amen. Follow that. Follow love. It's amazing to me, in 1 Corinthians 12, he talks about the gifting, and he talks about he set in order these government, these active gifts into the church. And then we go right into the end of 31, it tells you to cover something. You know, the covenant, to take a hold of it, to pursue that. Amen. To chase after that. A more excellent is the love. Amen. All this, and then you're going to go into love? But I realize that we use love so like turning on and off water nowadays. You know, we can use it. You can mess up out this morning. You say, I love you. You ain't love what? I think the church have forgotten to walk in that. John 3:16. For God so what He did, love, that He what? Gave. If you see someone walking in a gift and they don't know how to give love, then something is wrong with the gifting that they've been given with. Amen. Because that gift ought to flow love. Amen. When the first prophecy I gave, that prophecy was cut down, tearing up. I cut up the whole church. I beat them down so. I cut from the pastor, the pulpit, to the Johnsons in the back. And I sit down, and the Holy Ghost said, now that was you. Next Sunday, get up and do me. Hello? We got to learn how to love God people. Amen? And when God has given us something to correct somebody with, don't correct them through the whole church. Amen? Learn how to pull them aside and correct them. Amen? You don't have to show everybody sin. Everybody may not have known it was in that sin. When God showed it to you, it ain't for you to broadcast to everybody. Now everybody knows whispering. That's why I truly believe that He gave it to us, and then He turned around and said, now, what you got to do is 1 Corinthians 12:13 is love. Is love. The church got to come back to the love factor. Amen. And when we start desiring the love of God, and we start displaying the gift of love in the church, then we'll see the grace of God walking in the church of God. Amen. And that's where He wants us to be. He wants us to be grace activators. Amen. We are to activate grace in the earth today. We are to teach grace, walk in love. The grace is nothing but unmeasured what? Favor, amen? Favor that you don't deserve. I don't care how we fix it up, how we dress it up. It's favor that none of us deserve. Amen? But God give us the grace of God. Amen? That enable us to keep us, to sustain us, amen, to everything that we're going through. The grace of God will keep you no matter where you're at, what you're going. 36 years, the grace of God had to keep this church.
Hallelujah.
36 years it had to keep this church. There's no way in the world that the grace of God was not resting on the body of Christ here. Amen? And resting on the gift of God that he placed within this house. Amen? We got to realize that when God placed a calling on someone's life, when the Lord was telling me that he said, at first I called Jeremiah. I didn't place him as a prophet. I placed him in a place to get teaching and training, to hear, to have the hearing ear. God placed you here to have a hearing ear, to learn the prophetic. Amen? To learn how to do. Don't go on your own. Sit here. Learn what you need to learn. Amen? There's one thing about she's going to teach you the proper way. And when you're old, she's going to let you know. And that's what she's supposed to do. Amen. Don't get mad because she tell you you're old. Love her because she told you. Amen. You got to love somebody who willingly will tell you the truth. Somebody that just let you just go on and just do stuff. That ain't love. That ain't love. That's not showing you any kind of love. And that's not abiding and walking in that gift. Amen. Amen. I'm just going to throw some scriptures at you guys, and y'all guys can read them later. I'm going. You ready? Pastor Jimmy. I'm getting very short of breath. That's why I'm kind of pacing myself a little slow. Amen. But my brother just told me while I was in the office what was going on with me, so I appreciate you for that. And everything, but I'm just going to throw some scriptures out there. You guys can catch them later on. Amen. I'm good at Carol. I'm not gone that far yet. Romans 12:3 to 8. Romans 12:5 to 6. And Galatians 5:3. First Peter 4:11. You guys can go back and read this later on, okay? And get it in your spirit and get it in you. That the knowing that the spiritual gift that God gives to the church is for us. Amen. It's for to edify you. It's to equip you. It's to send you out. Amen. That you will bring them in, bring others in. Amen. Disciples go out and bring people in so they can get trained and equipped in the body of Christ. Amen. Hallelujah. I'm not going to push myself, you guys. But I do want to say this. Is that the gift that God has placed in this church and placed with you guys. Honor it. Honor the gift. Honor the gift. Respect the gift. Amen. Be allowing the gift to apply you. You know, it's not going to always be easy. But allow the gift to apply you and into that place where you need to be at. Amen. Allow that gift to nurture you when you need to be nurtured. But allow that gift to correct you when you need to be corrected. Amen. And allow that gift to send you forth. You know, a lot of times people say, oh, I can't do that. You know, if your pastor, if your apostle, and your prophet see you can do it, then ask God to give you the strength to do it. Amen. Because they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. Every one of us, He's given us a measure of gift. Amen. Every one of us have a measure, a gift, and a calling upon our life. Amen. So I want you guys to learn how to walk in that calling, walk in that anointing, walk in that gifting that God has given you. Amen. But put yourself in a place where you cover the most special gift of all, and that's the gift of love. And the grace of God that keep your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus will keep you. Amen. Amen. Pastor Jimmy, come on, finish up for me.
And thank God for the apostle. Amen. She endeavored to come because Apostle James had asked her. Amen. She wanted to honor his request and be here. Amen. But just to say, just have a few remarks in terms of Apostle James. You know, the Bible speaks of that the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. There are a lot of people on television and big time that have the gift, but not operating in the true spirit of the living God. Amen. There's a lot of people out there that got to jump and shout. Amen. By not living a hill of beans. Amen. Because of the gift, God's gift. Amen. But honor the gifts that God has given you, your true gifts. That not only have the gift and calling of God, but also have the spirit of God. And He will, as you have heard so many times before, we're living in a time the Bible is unveiling itself. It's come to pass. The things that God said will have come to pass, will come, are coming to pass. If you're a good student of your Bible, you can see those things. These signs that are happening in the land because Jesus is coming. Amen. And we have to be students of the Bible. We have to grow in the grace of knowledge of God, that when these false prophets come up, these false teachers come up, amen, we'll know how to discern the truth. And we can look past the gift and see what spirit is in operation. That's right. The Bible speaks of the wheat and the tares. They grew up together. Amen. They were so close entwined. Amen. You had to be a great farmer or have planted seed to know the difference in the plants. You're going to have to search the scriptures, amen, and get some theology so that you can discern the true prophets, the true men and women of God, that you won't be drawn away. Yeah. Amen. Life, eternity is too long to be spent in hell. Amen. Life, eternity is too long. And the Bible speaks what's going to be going on in hell. So don't get caught up in the gift. There's a lot of people got the gift. Amen. Have the gift. Have the gift of preaching to make you jump up and down, holler, and run around the church and jump flips. Amen. But recognize the true gifts. Yeah. Amen. Search the scriptures for yourself. Amen. Listen to Apostle James and Prophet Leon and Glenn. Yeah. Those teachers that's going to teach you to hear and know the voice of God. Amen. Amen. Thank God.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Bring it down just a little bit. Thank you. We lift up right now. Bring it up a little bit more. We're going to lift up Apostle today. Father God, we thank you that you are the healer. We sung the blood. We declared the blood. And so we do it even now. So over the woman of God, give her that supernatural strength that only comes from you. Lift her up where she belongs. We speak to that body right now. Be renewed. Be restored. Be revived. In the name of Jesus. Come on, y'all. In the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. Oh God.
Thank you, God, for delivering. Thank you, God, for saving. Thank you, God, for your strength. And she can do all things through Christ, we declare. Hey now, that strengthens her. We declare the Lord is her light, her salvation. She shall not fear. The Lord is the strength of her life. She will not be afraid. Thank you, Lord, today. That is already done. And we declare it so now in Jesus' name. You heard the word today, somebody here. You may not know Jesus. You may just know church. But you don't have an intimate and close relationship with the Lord Jesus, our Savior. The woman of God talked about love. And I know that our love is limited. 3 strikes, you're out. Our love is limited. We only measure and stretch ourselves so far. But God, there is no measure in Him. He's immeasurable. And He is immutable. He changes not, y'all. He changes not. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus still saves. So the Lord says, listen closely, in John 3:16, for God loves the world that does not love Him. And He gave His Son, His only begotten, that whosoever would believe in Him would not perish, but have everlasting life with love. You'll forever live with love. See, you'll ever will be with love. If you desire to ask the Lord Jesus to save you, stand where you are. Those of you that are watching on YouTube right now, just agree with this prayer. Father God, save me. Deliver me. Help me. I want and need your love, and I accept it now by faith. Come into my life. Rule my life forevermore. I pledge myself to you that from this day I'll live for you all the days of my life. Thank you, Jesus, for being my Savior and my Lord. If you prayed and agreed with that prayer, know today that God is your Father, and now you're His child, and He will care for you the rest of your life. Amen? Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
Well, what is customary here is that we honor the woman of God with an honorarium. And listen, if you can get the basket, and what we'll do is we're going to give our best offering to the woman of God. You need to, if you're writing a check, write it out to Center of Attraction or COA. And we're going to bless the woman of God today, and I'll do so. My envelope is there on the table, but we'll do that later. All right, and I believe this, that since she talked about order, talked about grace, talked about love, talked about honoring the gift, I believe that when you give to the woman of God today, I believe that this word will be activated on your stead and on your behalf. God loves a cheerful giver. Get ready to give now. He loves a cheerful giver. Amen. I want you to give your best offering. I challenge you with $20 today. If you want to take on that challenge or whatever God places on your heart, that's greater than 20. I want you to give your best today. Do you need an envelope? Everybody should be good. I think you had 2 envelopes. Anyone need an envelope? Raise your hand if you need an envelope. All right, no one. All right, I want you to come as you are. I want you to come and smile, ready to give. Y'all, Center of Attraction, you know how we do this. So this is he wanted to do the benediction, but we're going to just close out a little different this time. So, amen. Let me just say, and prophetess may have a word. She probably not going to have much because she said it all for me last night. Amen. And so all I had to say was amen after she was done. Let me say this first of all. That 36 years, you heard the woman of God, Apostle Washington, say that it's more than just a laying on of hands. You know, I want your anointing, so there it is, right there. All right, don't play me so cheap. Right? Because there's a lot more behind the scenes you're unaware of. 36 years, ups and downs. And it seems sometimes the downs were longer than the ups. But when we got up, and this ministry got up, we got up stronger, more wiser. We were more larger in the spirit of things. And for that we're grateful. In the midst of the congregation, Father, I want to say thank you. For some reason, choosing us to do what you wanted us to do in this time, in this season for these people. Thank you, Father, for that. And I want to thank also Center of Attraction Outreach. I believe these are the best people this side of heaven. I want you to give a great hearty praise and a clap for these people of God. I am not, sometimes I can be kind of, what's the word, not in tune like I should, but I'm not in this regard. You can't be great leaders without great followers. You cannot. And so for that, I just want to say I love you, I thank you for all the things that you have done for us these 36 years and whatever time you came aboard these 36 years. Thank you, thank you. I really, on behalf of my wife and I extend our love to you, and I want to just share that first off before I move on. And they're still working today, amen. Let me just say that 36 years, I'm ready for 36 more. I really am. Amen. I am still passionate to continue to do what God has called us to do. Our vision is great. Our mission is great. My heart is enlarged. You read this about David, and I'm concluding in a minute. You read this about David. The way the process is that you have to have an enlarged heart for an enlarged place. You can't go to a larger place if your heart is not ready for that place. And so I just believe that God is getting ready to do greater things in my wife and I, and therefore in your life. Amen? Hallelujah. Let's give 36 years another hand. 36 years. Thank you. Now, let's talk about some order here, shall we? Center of Attraction, you already know what our protocol is regarding guests. And so, of course, the guests are coming, and we have guests here. And so, let's help them find the food and find their place to sit. And then we will eat once our guest has eaten. And if you have to do some physical work, moving chairs or whatever, just go ahead and do that. This afternoon, amen, we continue with the celebration. And it's at 4 o'clock. We'll probably start a little early. It just depends if everything is done and everyone is in place. And so we have some special guests tonight. Amen. Our speaker tonight is none other than our friend and our doctor. That's Dr. Anthony Revis from Faith Ministries. Amen. From Midland. And so he's going to come and share. This is a man that is so learned in not only the Christian way of life, but also in the area of science. And so he has a lot to say, and we're going to be with open heart and ears ready to receive. He, his lovely wife, prophetess Linda, and the Faith Ministry family. We also are pleased to have the one and only Mr. James Owens, who's going to again play and sing for us, he and his band. And so we're just going to have a good celebration time. I just can't wait to see Dave do his little jig again when James gets ready to play. Hallelujah. We do want everyone in their proper place, amen, before 4. You know how we do it. We set the atmosphere in prayer. And so I need our intercessors to be ready, of course, for that, and our praise team as well. We'll probably just sing just a few songs, because there's going to be a lot going on with Christ Community, our other church. I know people say sister church. No, that's our mother church. All right, so let's get that right. That's our mother church. We came from New Christ Community Church. Amen. Amen. And that was 36 years ago. Yeah, amen. So they're still active, and we are too. Stand to your feet, everybody. Amen. And we appreciate you, Trinity, for coming. I talked to prophets. I talked to Apostle in the office, and she said, "Oh yeah, I brought them out today. I brought them with me today." Wonderful. You know we love you. Amen. And we'll see you whenever. I don't know when that time will be again. Amen. But lovely people, and we certainly appreciate you coming and worshiping with us today. Amen. All right, let's do the benediction. And we'll do the benediction. Okay. Hallelujah. And we get ready to move on. Come on.
Our benediction is found in Numbers 6, the 6th chapter of Numbers, the 24, 25, and 26th verse. And it reads, "The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace." Go in peace. Just let Jesus be the center of your attraction.
Will y'all help Trinity to the fellowship hall, and so that they can eat, please? Tracy, can you help them there, please? Find something to eat.